One of them is elected leader and comes up with a plan, and then they're going to break that into tasks, and then they're going to delegate those tasks out to these other two fairies. So it's now in kind of like planning judgment mode, and these other two are working on
Right.
the wireframes. Now, what's cool is that having two agents or multiple agents work on the same document is really chaotic if you've ever done that. But the canvas actually gives a really good way of the orchestrator to say, like, this is the part of the canvas that you work on. This is the part of the canvas that you work on. You can kind of see we have a IRC chat for the fairies here.
Nice.
You can kind of see them reporting on their status and accessing this chat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of Rough Magic, where we explore how LLMs are changing the shape of work with real demos. So today, our guest is Steve, and I'm your host, Mark. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I'll do a quick intro, and let me know where I miss anything. So you're a designer developer. You interestingly have a fine art background where you got your master's from the University of Chicago.
That's right.
And somewhere around the age of 30 years, I guess, you pivoted into tech and you used Framer quite a lot when you're doing some sort of web development work. You almost worked at Adobe, but delayed it by 6 months. And during that time, I'm very thankful, and many people are very thankful you delayed it, because during that time, you founded TLDraw, and you have possibly one of the coolest demo kits I've seen. So many videos of you with a laptop harness, walking around the room. Is that, where did you get that from? Was it self-made?
No, you can buy it.
Right.
They're not very good and they're not very comfortable, but yeah, you can.
They do the job.
Order them, yeah.
Nice. What did I miss?
No, that sounds about right. Steve Ruiz, I have a background in visual art, also in design, but I'm I suppose a technical designer, a programmer as well, and have been working on TLDraw and creative tools in general for more than 7 years now. And yeah, TLDraw is my startup. I am in our smaller office where I have a big green screen where I do these kind of Nathan Fielder style videos.
Nice.
With my own screen projected, or I don't know, chroma keyed on the green screen behind me. So we are talking about how LLMs are changing the way that we work. There's different places where AI has kind of shaped TLDraw's story, and also just like what we're doing now. Be happy to talk about the product, the company, all over the place.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, if there's anything in particular that's kind of shaped your thinking or philosophy, that'd be great. And then, after that, I think we can, jump into the demo. I know you wanted to talk about kind of where TLDraw is today and also where it's going.
Yeah, for sure. So I should kind of explain what TLDraw does. We are a kind of an infinite canvas SDK. So if you are building a product that you want to use a kind of like a Figma style multiplayer canvas modality, in the past, that's not many companies have done that, in part because it's very, very difficult to build. A huge amount of like kind of table stakes features before a piece of UI starts feeling like a canvas. And so that's what we do. We provide essentially all of those like kind of undifferentiated features, the zoom in, zoom out, the copy, the paste, the undo, redo. There are a lot. But if you get them all right, then you have essentially the starting point on which to build whatever type of product you want, because
and by the way,
they're all going to share that same functionality.
So one of the things I really love about TLDraw is kind of the intentional imperfections in the shapes and that sort of thing, because it kind of forces you to think about collaborating visually instead of editing.
Yeah, thanks. So we have our kind of like our default tool set, which is for essentially whiteboarding, and yeah, like you say, the shapes, the rectangles, etc., like have a kind of an inky hand-drawn feel, which involves a lot of like randomization. And part of the reason I do that is because a lot of our users are technical. A lot of online whiteboards are used by people who are used to having a lot of like precision, a lot of control. And if you give them that control, they'll use it, right? Like they'll obsess over colors or obsess over like sizes and stuff. So that imprecision is always a good way to kind of like hint at someone right off the bat that like maybe you don't have to care about that part of the problem and you can focus on some of the other stuff as well, or instead. You can still be very precise. People have built design tools in TLDraw, like the technology supports it, but the kind of the design choice is to lean into the imprecision, I suppose, and how things look. But yeah, so we when I started the company, it was always like, oh, we're going to give this technology to people and we're going to make it available, and then folks will kind of like discover potentially like the killer use case of this canvas, that like the historical uses of the canvas in design and like, photo manipulation and just kind of whiteboarding. Maybe there's like more to discover. There's like use cases that we've never seen before. And I didn't have AI on the mind like when I started that. Like I just wasn't that early on AI. This was again like 2021. I raised money in 2022, our seed. But it turned out to be kind of, well, I suppose every type of product is kind of swinging into being an AI product, but it's really, really quite strong adoption among companies with AI features. People who want to make software that's like really creative with AI, really strong adoption of TLDraw. We just had like Replit just launched a kind of an infinite canvas in their new Agent 4, like that's based on TLDraw. The week before that, like Luma launched a new agent experience for working with their new video model. Like that's based on TLDraw. We have a couple of different Google products using TLDraw. We have like a ton of really, really interesting AI and design tools that are using TLDraw.
Yeah, and Mobbin, ClickUp, and a bunch of other.
Mobbin, ClickUp, who else? Big ones like Autodesk, Shopify uses us for internal tools. But again, like the canvas is such a cool type of software to, like, people love it. Collaborative canvases and stuff, like there's a reason why Miro has as many users as it does. Like collaborative canvas is an awesome high bandwidth place for people to communicate and make decisions and iterate and do all these things that are really hard to do normally in software, but like absolutely can work on a canvas. And then what we're also learning is that a lot of the things that I thought were trade-offs for that like high bandwidth communication ended up being things that the AIs are good at as well. So as an example of that, what I mean by like high bandwidth is that I don't know if you've ever been at like a cafe or at dinner or something and someone's telling you about, usually these stories have involved traffic or cars or something spatial. Like I was at an intersection and then like there's me and there's them and that's how I got into a car accident or something. But you end up you like appropriate the shit that's on the table in order to become symbolic, right? Like you'd be like, okay, this salt shaker is me, this pepper shaker is the other guy, right? And then like, this, we just arrange things on the table in order to become meaningful just for just for the sake of this story. And everyone around at the cafe or whatever, everyone sitting there is like, yeah, of course. Like, sure, you are the salt shaker, they are the pepper shaker, like, let's go. But it's very hard.
Your little collision and there's...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it's very hard to do that type of thing in software. Like, you can't, like, software historically has, like, known what it knows, and anything beyond that is just a mystery, right? In the case of, like, Canvas, I give, like, the data structure, the data model in TLDraw is just, like, here's a rectangle, here's some text, here's a rectangle, etc.
Yeah.
And, if you asked it, what am I, like the software itself, like the bare programmatic software has no idea what you're doing with any of those. Maybe it could do some like text analysis based on like the text or something like that, but like the heuristics are they fall apart really, really quickly because like, I don't know, it could be anything, right? This could be a floor plan, it could be a retro, it could be a diagram, wireframes, it's just rectangles and stuff. But other people absolutely could like, operate super fast, understand exactly what's going on, work at the same time collaboratively, all that stuff. And only until very recently, have we had software essentially that could do those same things of like, recognize that like, okay, you're the salt shaker and they're the, and that these rectangles add up to a wireframe, and that the next thing that the user is going to do is to add a button here, or the next stage of this application is going to look like this, or okay, I'll turn this wireframe into a working prototype, and do all those things that well, I guess a person could do, but also software like LLMs can do really fast and really well.
Yeah.
And the pairing of those two things is like the canvas as an input and as a potential output, right? Like it can also create shapes on the canvas just like us. That's where we've seen some of the most unusual and straight up just good experiences with AI that I've ever had have been on the canvas, and TLDraw's canvas is a place to iterate on that. So that's kind of like the broad view of what TLDraw and AI have been, or I guess the intersection between the two is really just for us. How do we use this canvas as a place where we can take advantage of the visual spatial things that these models can do, and what kind of user experiences can we create that essentially exist nowhere else, or at least they exist for our customers and people using this SDK, but that are very hard to do from scratch and very hard to do without a canvas to work on.
Yeah, and I think also it's around, the both it's in reaction to the kind of shape of work changing with, engineers spending a lot more time on system design, or as a percentage of their time rather. Also, smaller teams, how do they communicate and collaborate together, adding friction into the process so you can build understanding where you need to, but also letting go. And one of the problems I had with some of these whiteboarding tools is I might do the whiteboarding, but how do I actually easily feed that into the LLM without just manually copying and pasting the whole time? But anyways, I think, Steve, it would be awesome if we can jump into a demo. I'm really excited to.
Let me show you show you some stuff.
And as I understand, you've got the SDK, right? You've got the TLDraw computer, and
it's quite a lot.
A whole bunch of other stuff. A lot of foundational stuff for agents in your SDK as well.
I'll kind of share the whole story really quickly. First off, there is this TLDraw SDK, and that is it's an NPM package. It's just like a normal. Think of it as a really fancy button or JSON editor.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to learn more about that, you can go to tlddraw.dev, and this is essentially what it looks like for the front-end developers in the crowd to use TLDraw. You just kind of put it in as a React component. One of the interesting things about TLDraw, actually, and very unusual things about TLDraw, is that it is entirely like a React component. The canvas is made up of normal web stuff, and which means you can do cool things that I'll kind of show, but it was not an obvious technical decision. Anyway, we have this TLDraw SDK. We use that in tlddraw.com, and that is what I'm using right now. That's a free multiplayer whiteboard where you can just jump right in, or you can sign in, create an account. It's free. You get files on the sidebar, and you can have almost as many of them as you want, some pretty high end. So, but this uses the SDK, right? It adds features around that. It's an application, and we also sell the SDK to other companies, which is great. And our idea, for those folks, is that you can use TLDraw to build really cool things. That you can build really unusual products and really fantastic products. However, in order to kind of prove that, we also do a lot of what I would consider cool projects, or also we call it side product.
Side hustles, yeah.
Yeah, side products. And those are often essentially marketing tools for the SDK. They're also inspiration for other product people to use, and many times they produce code that can be directly used by the way, a canvas like this, very, very easy to use, ridiculously hard to make. And just as a quick example, in the ink is my ink. The arrows are very opinionated, nice arrows that can smoothly connect everything, including to shapes like this, and that kind of follow the curvature, that follow the shape.
Oh wow!
Things like that.
How much time was spent
Dude, I don't even want to talk about it. It's ridiculous, and we have some limited support as well for like this type of shape, but it all, less good. You gotta stick with the good arrows. You can tell which type of arrows are my favorite, um, and yeah, everything from like laser pointers to um, shapes that occlude other shapes and that you can kind of drag in between. And like I said, you can put normal web stuff on here. So I don't dare fire up my own YouTube algorithm, but yeah, you could paste YouTube links, you could paste entire code editors and stuff on the canvas, because it's just like Notion is like a website that's kind of masquerading as a document. This is a website that's masquerading as a canvas, but it is very, very fast
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all that. Okay, cool. So that's the canvas. You do need a good canvas in order to do any of the other stuff that we're going to talk about. Some of these side products include TLDraw Computer, something called Make Real, another thing called Fairies, which is somewhat new, and then there are even more things. There's like Together, there's there was Draw Fast, there was, I'm forgetting one of them, but Make Real was the first one, and Make Real was, I've heard it called the world's very, very first vibe coding tool, which is I think actually probably could be accurate. But it was fall of 2023 when GPT-4 with Vision came out, and
Yeah.
that was the first time that like developers could use these like multimodal models. And one of the things that, well, I suppose we learned, this was originally done by a actually developer at Figma, Sawyer Hood, was that you could take this model and you could send it like a screenshot, right? Because in TLDraw you can make images. You could send it a screenshot just like you might in ChatGPT or something, and say like, you got to remember this is pre-cursor, pre-lovable,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pre-everything, right? None of that stuff was out yet. And you could take that screenshot, you could paste it into ChatGPT, and you could say, hey, make me a HTML based on this image that I did, right? But we brought that into the canvas in a way that both had a really good drawing experience, but also, as you can see, like, you can just generate the website right here, and it is a real website. Like you can actually double click into it and say, Steve at tlddraw.com, and click around. The great. But what we also learned, which I
So this was,
I think
so this
is
was in,
only, I'm sorry.
sorry, this was in what, 2022?
Yeah, November 2023.
Sorry, 23, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
And by
okay.
the way, like this went. It's been long enough now that like not everyone was on Twitter in November 2023, but this did insane numbers in terms of like there was a time where everyone's timeline.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember this release. I remember it. I
Yeah.
remember it. Yeah, yeah, I remember it. I
Um,
remember it. And
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 then yeah, go on.
one other quick question. You mentioned Sawyer Hood. Is that the same guy who released the dev browser, which was a much
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
context efficient version of Playwright?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. Nice.
It is. So he is a prolific kind of like AI world experimenter, tinkerer guy. And let's say, well, the other thing that we learned after working on this project for just a bit, I mean, it was cool because it was like, not only was
Yeah.
this the first for a lot of people time that they could use software to make software, um, but we just kept on learning like more and more things that you could do with it. For example, annotation, which is only now, like yeah, 2.5 years later, actually becoming a thing that you're seeing inside of apps. But boy, is this going to be such a serious way that people interact with
Yeah.
AI tools, is you
Yeah.
just draw on top of them, you just put whatever you want, screenshots next to the thing, just like it's very messy, but it's like incredibly cool because the models will absolutely incorporate your annotations into to the next iteration,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like I drew a couple, I don't know what model I'm using right now, but I drew a couple of things on top of this, on top of this, and then now we have the next iteration of the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
website that incorporates that, which is pretty cool. So
That
let's
is
move
true.
it over here.
Have you? A side note, have you tried Agentation by
No,
Benji? Okay, yeah, it's
no, yeah, no, not yet. I really want to. I've been
okay.
following his work for a long time.
Yeah.
So this is Make Real.
Make real.
What's fun is I could open this, but that would leak all my API keys. So I'll do it in a new tab. This is all bring your own API key. If you want to play with
Right.
it, it supports a whole bunch of different models, etc. But it's all like, yeah, you don't log into it. I don't care. It's just like it's essentially just a demo, but the things that people have
Right.
made with this stuff are incredible, and it's
Yeah,
been fun to
neat.
see how the things have changed. Anyway, that was Make Real. Yeah, if I jump back to here, um, there are a bunch of other ones, but they kind of all fit a little bit together. So I'm going to kind of go down. I'm going to save this one for later. If you want to explore TLDraw.computer on your own, then you definitely should. But I want to together is something else. I'm going to also put this one aside.
Yeah.
We could talk about these fairies and agent, and it actually kind of came together like this. It was first we tried to do autocomplete, and we were saying like these models can see the canvas. Uh, we have a data model for our canvas, and like let's
Yeah.
try and get the model to if I draw a circle and then I draw a circle inside of the circle, like try and get it to kind of cursor style suggest the next thing that we do. It worked. It was crazy. It was definitely not what I would consider a product experience that I would want to like share with other people, but
Yeah.
we learned a ton about while doing this, and so this actually became a project called Teach, where that was the one that I'm forgetting, where we essentially just allowed you to prompt the model to create stuff on the canvas for you, and not only create stuff on the canvas for you, but also create stuff on the canvas like with you. Let me try and find an empty spot.
So no drawing, purely prompting by text.
You could still draw, right?
Right. Yeah, but as a main input
Yeah.
model. Okay.
So, for example, I just say like draw a cat, and it will shoot for a second, but it'll start generating a kind of command structure. So like create these shapes or move these shapes here or do this. So it's very much kind of like Pelican on a bicycle type of thing, except this isn't an SVG. This is like the same stuff that I could make myself. So there's a couple of kind of standard demos that I do, but I always like this one the best, which is, so it's drawn a pretty bad cat, but I'll say make the cat blow out the candle. And again, from a data perspective, this is just an orange or a yellow rectangle. This is just a black rectangle, right? I didn't tell it what a candle was or anything like that. All
Yeah.
that is coming from the model. But this is
Wow.
the model's interpretation of how do you make that
That's
blow out,
amazing.
right?
I,
And you can use this to build, wireframes or diagrams, and there's all sorts of
I see a few cats.
yeah, lots and lots of cats. You can tell I've done this demo a few times.
One thing I observed and I really like is as it built out the cat, it sort of added the shapes one by one, so you could sort of follow the progress.
Yeah, yeah, but it was also doing that because it was streaming that structure back, right?
Yeah.
So we took, yeah, doing charts, very, very good. We took this and we took it a step further. We wanted to make it into something that our I suppose, customers could use. So we turned that into this agent starter kit, where again, like you could run out of, draw a diagram explaining how photography works. This is a starter kit. You can go to TLDraw.dev and find the source code for all of this. This is called our agent starter.
Right.
And like you can build on this code. This code is like kind of MIT licensed. It's like just go for it, right? Um,
So the starter kit is what exactly? It's you just have a few different playbooks. I think there were 7 or 8 of those, and it just
yeah,
renders a specific UI. So in this case, the agent starter kit is just rendering the side panel effectively,
yeah.
plus
But it is that whole. I mean, you
underneath.
can think of this as like a kind of like a harness in a way. Like it's
Yeah.
going to like it's a much like our SDK. It's code that you're expected to take further, but it is code that there's less of an agreed upon interface like there would be with an SDK. This is like, here is our solution to this problem, or our partial solution to a part of the problem. You take it and run with it, and kind of like complete the picture. So if you had an idea about how to make it better at this, like you could absolutely do that on top of the code here without having to maybe start from complete scratch. So this is and yeah, we absolutely did this in the style of Cursor, or at least what Cursor looked like in summer of 2025, I want to say.
Basically 10 years ago in AI
Yeah,
years.
exactly. Forever ago. Back when it was still a code editor. We have, by the way, this type of experience is actually in Cursor now. We have like an MCP app, which is very interesting. But same idea that it can create shapes. It can see what I did. What did I just do? It'll say like, whatever, you just deleted the light. So the next step for us after this was to take the agent and kind of get it out of this sidebar, and that is Fairies. So again, we had been kind of developing this harness, developing this way of using AI on the canvas. But so far, the AI either had no presence at all, right? It was just like a chatbot or multiple chatbots, or it was a sidebar, you know, with diffs and everything like that. But it was a single experience. Now we wanted to bring the agents onto the canvas, and the modality that I chose was Fairies. So which will perhaps make sense in just a moment. Let me summon them all here.
I'm intrigued.
There we go. So they're definitely not virtual collaborators, even though they kind of like behave like virtual collaborators. You can talk to them. They move around on the canvas. You can kind of throw them around if you want, and you can, like, they have names and haircuts, you know, and you can change the length of their legs. But yeah, they're
That's an interesting.
I did all the sprites myself, so you can kind of iterate through some of these different animations that they do.
Nice.
But the animations actually really are meaningful because one of the hard parts about using agents is that, like, they have all these different modes that they're in, but it's very hard for you to know at any given time, especially when running multiple agents, like what any individual agent is doing. What is their state, essentially?
Yeah.
Using them, and like, where are they on this thing? Like what are they working on? So by
That's
giving them a kind of
really cool.
a place on the canvas, that solves one of those problems, which is a human problem. Like, I need to know the state of these things, and it also works like as an extension of the harness when you need to orchestrate these fairies and these multiple agents. It turns out that, like, a 2D space is a really interesting place to handle that. In addition to having each one of these fairies operate independently, right? I can talk to them independently. I can also ask them to work together. So I can ask them to kind of work as a team. So I'm going to ask the group, Ferris, Helen, and Joan, make me wireframes for a mobile app that lets me order cats on demand, right? Pets on demand. When I talk to all three of them, there's kind of an orchestration system within this TLDraw, right? There are three separate agents. One of them is elected leader and comes up with a plan, which hopefully you can see them working on writing the plan.
Yeah.
And then they're going to break that into tasks, and then they're going to delegate those tasks out to these other two fairies. So it's now in kind of like planning judgment mode, and these other two are working on the wireframes. Now, what's cool is that having two agents or multiple agents work on the same document is really chaotic. If you've ever done that, within the same code file, they'll be stepping on each other's toes, so to speak. But the canvas actually gives a really good way of the orchestrator to say, like, this is the part of the canvas that you work on, this is the part of the canvas that you work on, and stay within those bounds. And that's just kind of one of the ways that we are now leveraging the spatial nature of the canvas in order to run these different agents simultaneously, and
And
they are pretty good. Yeah.
this is amazing. And the boss agent to say, how is it observing what the other agents are doing? Is it? I mean, obviously you can see what's happening in the code, but you mentioned the part about the 2D canvas. I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing two things. One is it's getting messages every time that the models kind of end a loop, essentially.
Yeah,
Every time that they do a review check or whatever, that is written into a kind of a shared state for
yeah,
all of the fairies. Actually, you know what? I can show you that. You can kind of see we have a IRC chat for the fairies here. Um, you can
nice.
kind of see them reporting on their status and accessing this chat also every time that they finish. This is part of the context that they get every time that they start a new
Nice,
prompt.
nice.
And the orchestrator is also kind of seeing that.
Yeah,
And it can go into modes, switch like basically state machine of like, am I waiting for something to be done?
yeah,
Okay, am I reviewing it? Am I giving feedback to the agent?
yeah,
Am I asking them to continue? And in that way, and they get the screenshot as well. They can like request show me this part of the canvas, and so they'll occasionally say like, oh no, you used the wrong icon, button, something, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Based on the work that the other agent had done. So it's quite an advanced harness for agents that just
yeah.
happens to take advantage of the canvas and like just happens to let you kind of like fling the agents around in addition to
I,
like talk.
yeah, I love that they have different color wings to show they're in the same cohort.
Yeah,
Um, you know, different sort of what do you say caricatures to describe the different states. So yeah, it's really cool.
yeah. Thank you. And it is also, TLDraw is collaborative, and this experience is collaborative as well. So if I had another, if I sent you this link, you would be able to join here, and you would have like, your own set of agents that maybe look different to me, that I can't control directly, but like we could all be working on the same canvas. You and your agents, me and my agents. And this really just scales to any number of users, actually. We've had 15 people, which adds up to 45 agents, all in the same document working together. And a lot of the canvas modalities, the things you get for free when you're using a canvas, just work. It was chaos, but it was still like a different type of chaos than you might have had you had 45 agents all working on the same file, or trying to
Yeah,
write
yeah, yeah.
a Word document or something like that. Like it's yeah, I've just never had hardly any experiences where I get to work with an agent and a person and in the same document, and for it to
That's
just be
incredible.
like number one, like at all, and then for it also just to like work really well. It's pretty exciting. I think you're going to see a lot more of this stuff
Yeah.
this year.
And in terms of the chaos, I feel like probably it was chaotic for the humans, right? Our own latency was maybe the bottleneck in that regard. I mean, like our human latency,
Oh yeah,
our own like, way to process
I think
the information.
what we're learning, the current theory about the canvas, so to speak, maybe this is true for
Yeah,
all AI tooling, is that there's going to be quite a lot of work going on that actually doesn't need anyone to look at it, kind of like the dark
yeah,
code factory, so on. So if this is the iceberg and this is the waterline or whatever, that like the majority of the work that's going on is just like essentially just the agents. But there will be a time where like you are needed, like the human is sort of like needed to be like tapped in, and that might be to monitor the work of one agent, it might be to monitor the work of a lot of agents, but it'll need a UI because I need a UI in order to interact with the software.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, at least within the team, I think there's some thought that the canvas might just be a really good place to do that, to oversee the work of like multiple agents that are working on many different things at the same time, or at least the subset of those things that matter to me that I need to know about for some reason. So
Yeah.
maybe I don't see all these guys, but I do see their work, and I do see the agent that I want to, or maybe, this guy is like, hey, I need you to make a decision. Let me quickly like create a user interface in order for you to do that, and let me do it on the canvas. Or maybe my question is, hey, show me quickly show me the progress or the diagram that explains like the work that's going on right now. I don't even know, but
Yeah. I
this is
think
a pretty good place
I
for the
think
canvas.
this I've observed kind of hints towards that. So there's quite a few people creating skills that are basically render an HTML website with maybe some beautiful mermaid to explain out the architecture diagrams, what's going on, or even tools to like quiz yourself about what's happening in the code base. And as humans, we perceive things much better as pictures. It's worth 1,000 words, as the
Hmm.
saying goes. So I think that it's gonna be interesting to see where it goes, but I can see the canvas being a really good modality for that.
Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, like this is only our experimentation here. Some of the are these the real ones? Yeah, that's true. Hey, I got it. I asked it to uh, uh, draw the circles around the real fairies. Don't get distracted by the fake ones.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
So so Steve, where's it going from here?
I think there are a few things that I still really want to try. Well, there are always new things. I think annotation for images and video
Yeah.
is still very much unexplored. It, like I've done it. I know that it works. I know there are folks at Google who have done it, and they know that it works. But it's still like until us, so we put together like a demo of showing just how powerful that is and just how intuitive that is. Yeah, I don't think people are. It's just very hard to imagine, but it's really good. And of course, for the web as well, pretty much anything that you can draw on top of any artifact, documents, including like screenshots of like your database, and just be like, hey, can you insert a column here, and it'll be like,
Yeah.
sure, here's the migration to do it. Like it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Uh, that's something. I think the kind of the spatial harness for agents is something that you know from one reason or another, like we've actually developed pretty specialized knowledge about. And so that's
Hmm.
something that I want to lean a lot further into. There are these kind of moments
Yeah.
in computing that you mostly exist in film, actually, like film representations of like computers are off like from the 90s. I often use like spatial 3D ways of thinking about data and
Yeah.
space because it just works on screen. But we're thinking that some of the strategies that we've done for fairies actually make a lot of sense for just about anything, but it just has to be laid out in 2 dimensions. So
Hmm.
just as a quick little detail that maybe your viewers, listeners could learn more about, we foveate the viewport or like kind of like the view of the document that the agent has. In other words, the shapes on the canvas that are closest to the agent will receive more information about than the
Ah.
things that are further away. And that's actually progressively less and less, right? So it's like maybe you just get the bounding box of like things that are
Mhm.
further away, or you just get the color of things. Less and less information, but you know it's there. And so the agent will, when they're kind of like learning about the canvas, will like move somewhere in order to find out more information about it, in order to access more context. So as a way of solving one of the problems of like how do I deal with like uh, a large amount of data, like right now I watch Claude Code like read random lines from like hundreds of documents, but like maybe that's
Yeah.
not the best way of doing things. Maybe there's some of the things that
Fascinating.
have worked for life will also work for the agents. This is one that we're spending a lot of time on. And then the third one is, if you can think of fairies as sort of like, it's an agent and it's able to move around the canvas, but the only time that things, the only way to prompt it is by talking to it, essentially. We are thinking of like, we call it like zones, or like kind of like haunted places, essentially areas of a canvas, kind of like marked out territory where anytime anything happens within this territory, some sort of AI will respond. So you can imagine this AI being like, anything that enters my domain, I will translate to French.
Right.
And you just bring something in, and without any other prompting, it'll come in and it'll turn it to the French. And you can do a lot with this pattern, such as move it to somewhere else. We have our French, we have our German
This is the TLDraw computer effectively, where you have
very
like
similar to TLDraw computer.
yeah. But except now, I mean, that's sort of like, you manually initiate it, or maybe you have like a cron or something like this, where this is a reactive, right?
Yeah.
To you moving something into that space. Okay.
Exactly. And it's really operating in the canvas. By the way, this is TLDraw computer. This is something my daughter drew and wanted to turn it into a Kirby cat on the head. Wonderful. And you just kind of like run the workflow in order
Right.
to do
Inputs
that.
on the left, prompt output on the
Exactly.
right.
But you
But
can use this.
now reactive to that zone.
Yeah, you can use TLDraw computer to make very complicated things. But yeah, similar to TLDraw computer, these sort of areas would live, how do I say that? By manipulating things spatially. TLDraw computer is great. It manipulates data, right? And it can kind of, capture data, even visual data, like things like drawings from the canvas. But it's primarily just operating only on the data. It's only creating some sort of output that is, it's not like creating other components like this.
Yeah.
Whereas I think something that we really want to try, that I think is very interesting, is to kind of keep the outputs within the kind of the spatial realm or whatever within the canvas. So this idea that like the data that the agent is operating on would still live on the canvas and still participate in these things. So that you might take translate everything, translate to French, if positive, move to, zone B, like else zone C, right? And plain English, and then this guy might, turn it into we, and then do some analysis, and then move it into B or C. But you can kind of like start stringing these things together in order to, and I don't know what this would do with it, but something, right? You can kind of create these like factories of prompt systems that live within the canvas. Yeah. And kind of like, I don't even know, because we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, that's the primitive.
But it's something very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the primitive. What are the use cases effectively?
Yeah. So we're
really cool. So
right.
Effectively, it's zones, it's your spatial harness, and it's your annotation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay. Well, yeah.
Keep an eye out. We're posting.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the demos you guys do generally, and I think this has been really, really a great demo. Love the fairies, but also love the backstory from TLDraw, and it's really come to life in the canvas. Before we wrap up, just a kind of a few questions. You have an extremely interesting background, both in kind of fine arts, and also now you guys have quite a heavy, you could say, like infrastructure play, right, with TLDraw. So yeah, I'm just curious to go deeper on what's your philosophy towards building things in general.
Philosophy towards building things in general. I guess because of the design background, or especially like the kind of the design prototyping, I try and build fast. I try to build again and again. So like I've rebuilt TLDraw multiple times. I always am happy to throw out code and start over again. And how do I say that? You can take something that is okay, and you can just keep working on it. I think if I can get myself into a mode where I can recognize what the next thing would be, either that's a quality improvement or a feature or something like that, and then can immediately distract go fix it, and then continue. And just have that really tight loop between being a user and then being the one to work on it. If you can stay in that loop, and if I can stay in that loop for a long time, great things happen. And so much of the way that I manage my own labor, the way that I direct my team is to try and be in that place where you have all the knowledge that you need and the context you need and the access to new information that you need and the permission to just make it better. Just make it better, 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 better. And
Yeah.
I don't care about any of the current state, because the current state is just sort of a in-between state, right?
Yeah.
And you can do that for years, and that's what I've done with TLDraw. So maybe
It's almost an embodiment of TLDraw itself, right? Don't focus on the editing, just focus on the thought process, communication, iterating on that in a sense.
yeah, you can't make it perfect, but you should try.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easier to try if it I don't know, if you know it can't be perfect. So
Well, yeah, thanks so much, Dee, for your time. It's been really, really great. If anyone wants to follow you or get in touch, where can they do so?
yeah, best way to get in touch with me is on Twitter. So or x.com/Steve Ruiz OK. And then you can follow TLDraw at x.com/TLDRAW, TLDraw. And if you want to learn more about the building stuff with the canvas, there's so much that I didn't show and all that stuff. That is at TLDraw.dev. And if you don't care about that, but you do want to have a very nice canvas for building, I don't know, doing interviews or calls or whatever you want to do with a whiteboard, that is at TLDraw.com. Yeah, all those other toys that I showed you, TLDraw.computer, makereal.TLDraw.com, teach, all that stuff is on TLDraw.dev. I think we have a showcase of our own projects and then other people's as well.